Happy Monday. Welcome to the Media Row podcast, sponsored by Kelly's Little Nipper. I'm Justin Miller, your host, as we kick off the best week in all of sports. Yes, NCAA tournament first round. We saw the brackets be released yesterday, was at the Knapp Center live for the selection show, which great turnout by the Drake Bulldog fans. Again, what Brian Harden and this group has done to really turn around this program has been incredible, because if I go back to 2015, I don't even think days like that are possible. But great turnout by Drake fans, more than it was last year, and definitely more than it was in the first year where it was kind of secluded from fans. Love how they brought it out into the Knapp Center. And before we dive into anything, this is how it sounded when Drake heard their name called. So great work out of the Drake fans to really pack the Knapp Center and make that a really exciting moment, as Drake is headed to Wichita to play the 6th seed Missouri Tigers. Drake earning that 11th seed. And we'll dive into that game in a little bit. But before we do anything else, I mentioned how I'm headed to Wichita, and I said I would talk about the details on today's show. Put out that tweet last night. And here's what happened. And it is just, I don't want it to come off like I'm bragging. It's more just me wanting to give a huge thank you to the Drake Athletic Communications Department. When I was a senior, Danny Frey was the SID. I annoyed him. I tried to follow him around as much as possible, help him out as much as possible, doing soccer, softball, whatever I could, to just be a part of the program and to learn more. Yeah, I wanted to do play-by-play, but I loved writing and I loved stats. So I wanted to just do all of it. And so Danny, when it got to Drake being announced that they were headed to Albany, was like, they are not taking student radio, but how would you like to be the assistant SID, and I did air quotes, and travel with the team and help us out? And I said, absolutely. And it was a great learning experience. And I owe so much to Danny on so many different levels for my time as a senior at Drake. But now, moving forward, still having those connections, and the way Jack has come in, Jack Blome, come in as an SID has been incredible. Dave Scheiniger has been amazing at Drake, and he's been there since I was a student too. And so knowing those guys and always trying to help them out as they help me out too tremendously has really been an amazing experience. But long story long, as I'm packing up after interviewing Coach last night, Dave pulls me aside. He's like, hey, if the women play Thursday, I can't go to help Jack out with some like pregame stuff. Would you want to travel with the team? And I was like, yeah, whatever you need, let me know. So that being said, Media Row is traveling with the Drake Bulldogs, getting access that not every media outlet is getting. So if you want to watch and, enjoy this run, this March run, you better be following Media Row, whether that's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Make sure you're following Media Row, because this is the insight that you're going to want to see. So again, a huge, huge thank you to the Drake department for giving me this opportunity. And, I'll help them out with whatever they need. And then I'll still be able to do my show and cover the game. So just unbelievable what they've been able to do for me. And they've been that way all year long. When I had my stuff with iHeart go down, one of the first text I got was from Dave saying, hey, I'm sorry this happened. There's a credential with your name on it. Ready when you are. That means the world. And not every school does that for people. But Drake, the community, the companionship, the way there's not really ego. It's just helping each other out. DKG Images could be like, no, you have to pay me. Devin could have been like, you have to pay me to use my images. No, he's like, yeah, dude, use them. That means the world. And so I'm just extremely lucky and want to say thank you to Dave, Jack, Brian Harden, everyone at the Drake department for allowing me this opportunity. Means the world, and I seriously appreciate it. So moving forward now into the selection show that we saw at the Knapp Center. Like I said, great turnout. Love how Drake has turned this around from not being so secluded to getting the fans involved. Hell, it's your third straight time being a part of Selection Sunday. Make it big. And it was awesome. Great turnout. This is what Coach McCollum, though, had to say in his nonchalant, very confident. It just makes you want to play for this kind of guy, cheer on this guy. In his way of being excited about seeing their name on the board, understanding the importance, but also understanding there's a lot of work to be done. It's like the Kobe moment when he's sitting there in the NBA Finals and the journalist goes, you don't look happy. And he goes, what is there to be happy about? Job's not finished. Here's head coach Ben McCollum on his opening thoughts of getting the draw versus the Missouri Tigers.
Yeah, obviously our kids have earned the right to be able to play, but it's like taking over the Drake job. It's great to have the job, but the work starts now. And so same concept. It's great to make the NCAA tournament, but your work starts now, and you need to be focused. You need to be ready to go. Need to be excited, and need to be ready to compete.
So it's Wichita. Drake, an 11th seed, taking on the 6th seed Missouri Tigers from the SEC. Bulldogs coming off of a historic season, 30-3 most wins in program history, 3 straight Missouri Valley Conference tournament titles, first regular season title outright since 2008. Then you go to the Tigers, 22-11 overall, 10-8 in the SEC. And you look at these two teams, there's a lot of similarities. But the biggest difference is you have a top 4 SEC offense going up against one of the best defenses in the nation. So this is going to be offense versus defense, but still, like I said, a lot of similarities between these teams. The biggest one is just in the play style offensively by these teams. Both like to take their time. They don't rush shots. They like to try to limit the number of possessions defenses get. Tigers right now, 194th in the nation in possessions per 40 minutes at 68.2. The Drake Bulldogs just slightly ahead of them at 68.6. The other similarity is just how these two teams guard and attack the glass. Rebounding, Missouri top 5 in opponents' rebounds per game in the SEC, only allowing 32.8. Drake Bulldogs were number 1 in the Missouri Valley Conference, only allowing 25 rebounds per game. Both teams, though, they sat at the bottom of their conferences in total rebounds, but it's not because they weren't attacking the glass. It's like what Ben McCollum said in St. Louis. It's just because of their play style. And they don't have as many opportunities because there's not as many shots going up. So you have two teams, very similar characteristics, very similar play styles, but Missouri hasn't done great against strong defensive teams. The top 3 defensive teams in the SEC are Tennessee, Florida, and Texas A&M. Against those 3, the Tigers went 1-3 in the regular season. So I think it's a tough opening round battle for these Bulldogs, but definitely with the two play styles matching up so well, it's definitely a game the Drake Bulldogs can come out on top of and move on to the second round and win their first NCAA tournament game, I think, since the 60s, maybe the 70s. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a great game. One of the best first round games. I mean, some of those 8-9 games. Ooh, Creighton, Louisville. That's going to be on my must-watch list. But definitely this 6-11, I think just in the nation, a lot of people are going to be eager to see what Ben McCollum's squad has against an SEC team. Drake 1-0. They already beat Vandy this year. Let's make it 2-0 against the SEC. But we'll break down that game more in depth because I have a few ideas of what we can do Wednesday to really get in depth with these two teams. But so be sure to listen to Wednesday's shows. That's going to be all previewing that Thursday 6:30 tip of Drake and Missouri. 11th seed Drake, 6th seed Missouri. Be sure to check that out on Wednesday's show coming out at 2 o'clock. Now, before we get into, because we still have Missouri Valley Conference women's basketball to get to, just both conferences in general having to get to their postseason matchups and what is going to be ahead for these teams. Let's give a shout out to our title sponsor in Kelly's Little Nipper. Bobby Ennis, a listener from the show, texted me or tweeted at me on Sunday morning and said, I'm headed to Kelly's Little Nipper. Thanks for the message, Bobby. And he said he had a great burger, loved the environment. And that's what Kelly's is. And I brought a lot of people there after the Sunday selection show who hadn't been there yet. So trying to get people involved at Kelly's, went there, like I said, Sunday after the show, and was great. Absolutely great food, great drinks, great company. The ticket was able to punch it. So I only need 3 more punches and then we get to sign it and then we get a free meal. But really excited to grow the fans coming to Kelly's Little Nipper and make sure, just like Bobby did, when you go to Kelly's Little Nipper, make sure to tell them that Media Row sent you. Kelly's Little Nipper, 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. So moving forward, like we said, we're going to do a deeper dive on the Drake Bulldogs NCAA tournament game against Missouri on Wednesday, so be sure to be listening to that. But wanted to dive into the Drake women's basketball, what they're going to be looking forward to in the postseason, and just the Missouri Valley Conference in general. Starting off with the Drake women, tough semifinals loss against Murray State, just too much offense. Very reminiscent of that first matchup in Des Moines, where Murray State just kind of ran over the Drake Bulldogs, which is very rare because this Drake team is a good defensive team and a really good offensive team. But shots just didn't fall for the Bulldogs. A lot of shots fell for Murray State early. Katie, though, an all-time performance, historical performance. Third 40-plus point performance of the year, 45 points from her. Loved how ESPN Plus was acknowledging her as a possible WNBA player. They weren't saying, weren't saying, oh, she should be drafted. But we're just saying teams need to give her a true look. The way she plays defense is so good. But also just her ability offensively is unmatched. 45 points from her. But then you go over to who, if Katie wasn't having a great year, who would have won the Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year, in Caitlin Young, 30 points from her. And the team just shot 50% while Drake went 34 of 79. Or I had that backwards. It was like 36 of 74. And just a tough shooting night for the Drake Bulldogs. And so Murray State moves on, and they hoist the trophy and move to punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament as the top offense dominates Belmont, who is the top defensive team. And after Belmont upset Missouri State in the semifinals, but gets dominated in the championship, 83-62. And now the Racers, here you go, they go to the NCAA tournament and in round 1 take on the Iowa Hawkeyes, who are a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. That game will be played on March 22nd. The time hasn't been announced just yet. But so a tough, end to Evansville for those seniors. Really feel for the starting seniors and Courtney Becker, Katie Dinnebeer, of course, and Anna Miller. Anna Miller, just not her strongest outing. Courtney Becker had a few weird turnovers that just weren't, plays that she usually makes, mistakes that she usually makes. But this team, you could still watch them. Their year isn't over yet. The Drake women will be playing in the WBIT against Marquette on Thursday. One of the main reasons I was able to go to Wichita with the team is because they're playing on Thursday. So as a Bulldog fan, you're going to have to double screen it, double box it, because you won't want to miss this Drake women's team. Could possibly be the last time you see the big three in Becker, Miller, and Dinnebeer. I mean, those three, I put out a tweet saying as much as Pullman, those three have been why Drake has been successful. Dinnebeer has been incredible on and off the court. Courtney Becker, coming back for her 5th year as a graduate student, has been incredible. And Anna Miller, one of the most improved out of the three, was always great defensively, but really offensively stepped up her game this season. And I think not just in being able to stretch the floor and shoot those threes, but really just her passing. Really impressed with Anna Miller. So you won't want to miss it. If that's possibly their last game, you won't want to say you were one of the few people to miss that game, but hopefully it's not. We can dive more into that Drake Marquette game too Thursday as well. But the WBIT getting 3 Missouri Valley Conference teams in that tournament. You have Drake, of course, and then UNI taking on Florida. And as much as Katie Dinnebeer has been a staple in the Missouri Valley Conference, Maya McDermott is one of, first off, a player that you watch on the floor and just looks like a killer on the court. But then you interview her, and is one of the nicest people, very much like Katie. I think Hunter Phillips has a great line about those two, as you just don't let the smile fool you. But so UNI taking on Florida, and then Missouri State going up against Oral Roberts. Missouri State, very shocked they lost in that semifinals against Belmont. Not shocked Belmont played well, because I know that defense has been incredible all year long. But it has just been, Missouri State's been one of the most balanced teams. I think they could go pretty deep in the WBIT. Now, maybe some of you ask, why isn't Drake in the NCAA tournament? Strength of schedule is one thing. Just was kind of inconsistent at some parts of the season. I think, they were able to battle back against Murray State, but for the most part, Murray State controlled that semifinals game, because at the time it was Missouri State was noted as the automatic qualifier. Murray State was one of the first 4 teams out. It just did not seem like many people were focused in on Drake. It looked like the Bulldogs were going to have to win the whole thing, just because their 2 toughest opponents they played this year, they lost to. Sure, did they play them well? And were they close? I mean, they were a Audie Crooks hook shot away from beating Iowa State in Hilton. But when you look at strength of schedule, when you look at their resume, 2 NCAA teams go into the tournament, or 3. They played 3 NCAA tournament teams, and they went 1 of 3. They lost to Murray State twice, lost to Iowa, or 1 of 4, actually, because they lost to Murray State twice, lost to Iowa State, beat Murray State once on the road. And just, I don't like it, because I would have loved to see the senior group and Pullman be able to coach in the NCAA tournament. They had a good run last season, nearly beating Louisville, but just the nature of the beast. It wouldn't have been, it's not as big of a shock as, people were worried about the Drake Bulldog men's team being left out just with the season they've had. But just the nature of a beast living in a mid-major. But so that's kind of my take on how I feel about the Drake women missing out. It does suck, but now go make some noise in the WBIT. Beat Marquette and go on a run. And now for the NIT on the men's side, 2 Missouri Valley Conference teams get in. UNI will take on SMU March 19th at 9 p.m. Also on March 19th, Bradley taking on Alabama. Bradley, a 3 seed, going up against North Alabama March 19th at 8 o'clock. So the Valley still getting a little bit of love in the postseason. Yes, still just a 1 bid in both NCAA tournaments, which, man, just feels like, I think Missouri State could have made an argument of getting in, but again, their strength of schedule is kind of iffy. So it'll be a while, I think, before we see multiple Missouri Valley Conference teams get in. On both the men and women's side, it sucks. I don't always agree with it. On the women's side, I kind of understand it more just because of strength of schedule. But if the men, again, if luckily we don't have to have this conversation, but if they would have missed it in the NCAA tournament of not winning their conference title and they would have kicked them out and put a team in like North Carolina, I get it, they're one of the first 4 that have to play on that Tuesday or Wednesday, but my goodness, that team does not deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. And the fact that Drake could have lost in St. Louis and that team got in over them would have been insane. Would have made no sense whatsoever. But luckily, we don't have to worry about that. Luckily, the Drake Bulldogs are headed to Wichita to battle 6 seed Missouri. Again, I will be there, so make sure to follow along on all social media platforms for the best coverage of this Drake team in their trip to the their trip to Wichita and the NCAA tournament. March Madness is finally here. Thank you guys again so much for just supporting Media Row. Saw a bunch of people that listened to the show, and huge, I always love it, and it means the world to me. Just the huge pouring support from the listeners, the fans, truly means the world. Ran into my elementary school teacher. This kid runs up to me and he's like, "Hey, did you by chance go to the downtown school?" It's like, "Yeah." Then just ran away. And I look at like Sean and Carson like, I don't know what that was about. And then I see this lady walking down the steps, and right away I look at Sean and Carson and go, "That's Miss Clark. She was my elementary school teacher." So I ran over. It was great to catch up with her. My brother had her. I had her. So it was just incredible. And she was just one of many that have been huge supporters as we've been building this thing at Media Row. So again, thank you to Brian Harden. Thank you to the Drake Athletic Communications Department for everything they're doing this week for Media Row. Thank you to Kelly's Little Nipper for being our title sponsor. Thank you to DKG Images for always being our main go-to guy for any Drake photos that we use on this page, and for our social media clips, for our just YouTube page as well. Huge shout out to DKG Images. And then finally, all of this would be meaningless if it wasn't for you guys, the listener and the fans. So make sure to continue to like, subscribe, comment. Means everything to me. And continue to follow along for the best coverage for this Drake men's basketball team as we head to Wichita Thursday at 6:30 to play Missouri. We will see you Wednesday, probably live from Wichita, to preview that one and more on the NCAA tournament. Thank you guys so much. Have a safe trip if you do travel to Wichita. And if not, I will see you on Wednesday at 2 o'clock.